Family wants to force custody? Become an addict. Hey everyone, welcome back to Lives on Reddit. Don't forget to subscribe to be a for lifer. Obligatory long-time lurker, first-time poster note. I barely know how posting on Reddit works, so please forgive me if I mess anything up. So about 3 years ago, my cousin Mike and his wife tragically passed away in a car accident and left 2 very young children. The family was pretty devastated. My aunt and uncle, the children's grandparents, had been watching the children that night and kept watch over them for the weeks following, including the funeral. I remember mentioning to my dad how it was going to be rough for my aunt and uncle to raise young kids again, and my dad said, "Oh no, once everything works out, I think cousin Jennifer will be taking them." I thought this was a bit odd, seeing as my cousin Jennifer was only 23, didn't have a job, and was in university across the country. She was also single, though I guess that shouldn't really matter. A few weeks later, I noticed cousin Jennifer had deleted or deactivated her Facebook account. I was curious and asked my dad what was going on. He told me I had to keep it a secret, but that my cousin was addicted to painkillers and was in rehab. She'd had to drop out of school even. This really sucked, especially as our family is usually very drama-free. My aunt and uncle ended up adopting the children though, and things all seemed to work out okay. Fast forward to this year, during the pandemic, I've gotten way more into online gaming and ended up reconnecting with Jennifer. She eventually got a new Facebook account because she also plays a lot of similar games. Recently, a close friend of mine has been struggling with addiction and is considering seeking medical treatment or rehab. Jennifer is my only reference for this, so I sheepishly asked her if I might talk to her about it. She told me to switch to voice chat because, well, it was a bit of a doozy. She opens with, "I am really sorry, but I can't help you. I was never actually addicted to drugs." I was really worried at first that this was some weird addict denial, but turns out what happened after my cousin Mike's death 3 years ago was much worse than I realized. Jennifer proceeds to tell me that when she came back home from Mike and his wife's funeral, my aunt and uncle, aka her parents, began to mention, as if it were implied, that she would soon be taking over care of the 2 children. They were 5 years old and 2 years old at the time. Jennifer kind of laughed us off, seeing as she only had just turned 18 when the kids were born. Her parents were the ones legally designated to take over custody if anything happened to her brother or his wife. Mike's wife's father had passed away and her mother was in a nursing home. But they started getting very serious about it. My aunt said that her and my uncle had a lot of travel plans, that they were in their golden years, and they couldn't take care for the children much longer. They agreed to be babysitters and said that Jennifer should move into Mike's fully furnished home. Yes, just move into your dead brother's house and sleep in his bed, totally not weird. Also implying that she should drop out of school and get a job back home. She begins to explain to them the many reasons she should not and could not take care of these young children. 1, she was child-free and Mike knew this. She doesn't particularly like kids and never wants to have one. He knew this even when she was 18, and that's one of the reasons she wasn't designated to take over custody. 2, she was getting her master's degree and had an internship that should lead to good employment in her college town as a career starter. 3, she was only 23 years old and had 0 child rearing experience and never even babysat and had no younger siblings and had only interacted with the children on the occasional holiday. My aunt and uncle began to bingo her and guilt her, especially my aunt. "Oh, you're the perfect age to be a mom. You love the kids once you get to know them. You'll find a nice man to help you take care of them." Jennifer got so frustrated at all this and was dealing with the very fresh grief of losing her brother that she stormed out and got a hotel instead of continuing to stay with them. She left 2 days later without seeing them again and let them know via text when she was already 1 leg into her plane trip. My aunt and uncle were really angry that she left without spending more time with the children and without talking to them more about the future custody situation. Over the next couple weeks, they start hounding her hard. They start sending her information from lawyers they're contacting to see about custody transferred. They sent her pictures and videos of the kids, including one where the 5-year-old said, "I can't wait for you to be my new mommy." At one point, my uncle started sending her screen caps of flights they're shopping for to come bring the kids to her to visit, and that they can do the custody transfer in her college town instead. No matter how much she protests and disengages and explains how this will not work, they refuse to let up. So in her words, she went nuclear. My aunt and uncle have always been very straight edge, never had alcohol in the house, and believe drug addicts are irredeemable failures. Naturally, Jennifer decides to fake a drug addiction. She did research online and got her roommate to help out. She sends my aunt and uncle a lengthy email, not their usual method of conversation, confessing to a terrible opioid addiction following a minor surgery the previous year. She tells them she is dropping out of university for the remainder of the semester and checking into a rehab facility. She will be no contact on her phone for a few weeks as she completes her treatment. Thankfully, my aunt and uncle were and are pretty tech illiterate and didn't look up the rehabs in the area or figure out she hadn't actually dropped out of school. She blocked their numbers on her phone and began calling them once a week from rehab, aka her roommate would pretend to be a receptionist using a Google Voice account and then let her have the approved phone time. This is also when she deleted her Facebook. On her first rehab call, she sobbed to them on the phone and confessed that this was one of the reasons she couldn't take on custody. She would also be an addict, and no court would give her custody if she had been in rehab for hard drugs. Finally, they relented. They agreed she couldn't be trusted around the kids and they would have to take full custody, aka agree to their legal obligation. She asked that they not tell anyone as she was so ashamed. Whoops. And after a month, she unblocked their numbers and let them know she was out of rehab and in recovery. She told me she definitely regretted this lie sometimes, but she was young and grieving and absolutely panicked. Her parents were intimidating her and telling her they could force custody and drop the kids at her doorstep. We both talked about how, of course, that wouldn't work, but again, she was terrified and confused. It was so sad that her child-free stance was steamrolled so much by her own parents that she was willing to create a rift between them just to ensure she didn't get stuck with children she couldn't properly care for. She's even still a bit scared what might happen down the line if something happens to her parents, as they've never mentioned who they would give custody to if something happens to them. Too long didn't read. My aunt and uncle decided they didn't want to care for their dead son's children after all. Tried to force my young child-free cousin to take over custody against all logic and her wishes. And she had to fake a drug addiction before they finally gave up. OMG, I've actually been in a similar situation. My sister-in-law was begging me to become the legal guardians of her stepson. Mother isn't in the picture. And her unborn baby in case something happens to her and her husband. All of her siblings are child-free. Yeah, I'm sure you can see how this is going to work out. Not to the point of lying about drug addictions, but it might come in handy. I'll keep it in my back pocket just in case she keeps hounding me to sign on as her guardian or godmother. I always assumed I'd have to fake my own death to get out of that sort of thing. Faking a drug addiction sounds way easier, and I'm 100% going to remember this in case of an emergency. No matter what she says, you're allowed to refuse custody. Crap, that's crazy. Sounds like her parents were using FOG, fear, obligation, and guilt, to try and control her, as described in the book Emotional Blackmail. Super. So they don't want to take the children, so they try to impose it on their daughter? Nice. One should be able to just give a firm no and have that respected and honored. Why do I have the feeling that her parents probably begged her late brother for grandchildren? This is so sad. I feel for the sister and the kids. I hope the aunt and uncle at least try to be good parents to them rather than acting resentful. Thankfully, my aunt and uncle seem to be very good second time around parents. This is according to my dad as well, who knows the situation better and sees them more often. They're in a distance learning pod now with the kiddos, and even have other kids over for that. I mean, I can't know every detail, but all seems to point to them getting over it and stepping up to the plate. They should have given the kids up for adoption by people who actually wanted them, but they clearly wanted none of the work and all of the glory, which is why they tried to hand them over to Jennifer, because then all their friends would have admired them for 1, taking in the kids, and 2, bringing up their daughter right. Kudos to Jennifer for her quick thinking and creative solution. I hope the kids are doing okay. First losing their parents, and then seeing that their grandparents don't want them and try to hand them over to their aunt was not a good experience for them. Yeah, they definitely treated gifting her the house as, see, we can take care of both you and the kids. You just take over the role of caring now, and we go back to being babysitters. They get the glory for being charitable and helpful. It's hard to judge from afar, but Facebook posts and my dad's experiences points to the kids being better and well adjusted. I think as soon as my aunt and uncle realized they couldn't just easily get out of their obligation and got past some of their own grief brain, those old parental instincts kicked back in. Whoa, 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 whoa. Don't leave. Subscribe. Be a for lifer.